Lydia Berry and I am the COO of the Fitness Resort, which means that all things operations are under my purview, which for me, I see that as being the infrastructure that supports getting our product, our amazing new product, commercially viable as a business, getting it out there, getting it generating revenue, but also the infrastructure behind the scenes to actually develop this as a business that is sustainable for the long run. So all those back-end systems that allow everything to work well, that support the product to get out to as many people as possible. So that does include things like sales, like marketing, but also those operational processes and systems behind the scene. And of course, because we are supporting customers, we need a really good customer service infrastructure as well. So if I had to describe my career path to date in 3 words, not that I've ever had to do that before, but I think I would definitely say eclectic. And what I mean by that is I have had roles in different industries, in different types of function. And what I've done over the years is I have learned as much as I can from each of those experiences, and actually not even all just work experiences, experiences from across my life that I now in my position here at the Fitness Resort draw upon. So I see it as a very kind of broad experience, very eclectic, that I now bring to bear in order to do the best I can for the Fitness Resort. The second word I think would actually be the word risky. I think for me, I definitely saw myself as somebody that enjoyed being employed. I loved what I perceived as the security there. And I was very happy doing that. And I never envisaged myself being a business owner, being a founder. And yet 4 years ago, that was the decision I made to start my own business journey. And now coming to the Fitness Resort, actually a lot of those decisions are risky because especially with being a startup and certainly in WebXR, this is an emerging sector. It's not mainstream yet. And so there are a lot of risks involved. And I clearly am becoming more and more comfortable with taking risk and living in the uncomfortable. I would then say my third word would be unscripted. Now bear with me, what I mean by that is I feel certainly over the last 4 years of my own kind of startup journey is that I've gone off script. I'm now writing my script. It's much more, I know everyone can say, actually we're not really in control of much, but I do feel that I have a lot more agency over my own career now, and that I am writing my own script, and that as with Fitness Resort, I carve out this new role, I help carve out the business along with my fellow co-founders, that we are writing our own script. So I think that would be my 3 words. I see so many possibilities for VR as it grows as an industry and as it develops from being what you might describe as an emerging sector or an emerging industry into mainstream. What I have observed in this space is that if you look even 10 years ago at the smartphone, it was new, it wasn't something that everybody had, whereas now in 2023, I basically can hold a handheld computer in my hand, and that's not even thought of as unusual or something that only a few people can afford even. It's become mainstream and it's become democratized, that technology. And I see VR going very much that same way, where the manufacturers of the hardware will, in the best way, in the healthiest way for the consumer, compete for their business, and so make their hardware more and more accessible to more and more people. And that helps it become more mainstream. Another thing that I've seen, again with the smartphone, which links with VR, is how we are now used in our social, private and professional lives to send links, to send URLs to each other, and for it to be like, I'll ping you the link, and you can check out whatever that meme is, or silly video, or something serious is. And with VR and WebXR, being able to send a link to somebody to then join them in a VR space is possible with WebXR, and increasingly it will become more mainstream, more expected, more everyday. Now, I couldn't even guess the full ramifications for that as a society, but I do imagine a time where, just as I'm sat here in my office space, and I have a little sort of holder for my smartphone for me to check and do whatever I need to, that next to it I'll just have my holder for my headset. And just as a colleague or an external person that I'm speaking to might send me a link over an email for me to look at, that it will be just as normal for them to send me a link in VR, and then I will just grab my headset, go to that link, and either join them in that space or view the thing they wanted me to view. So that is how I envisage VR developing in terms of everyday consumers and how that affects our life. I do think if you see it with the smartphone and then with VR, the idea that as the technology makes things possible, the people using it then develop new ways, and it becomes this never-ending kind of cycle of pushing the technology on, driven by consumer behavior. But you need the tech first to show the consumer what's possible, and then the consumer takes it, runs with it, and then starts demanding new things of that technology. We are in that space now with VR. So now VR is saying, hey, these are the things that you can do with me. And slowly but surely, more and more consumers are getting on board with that, trying it out. And the dream, I suppose, for us is that it will get to that point where consumers are so used to consuming that type of technology that they get demanding, and they say, actually, I don't want to do it that way, I want to do it this way. And then the technology has to meet up and flex around their behaviours. That's where I see VR going in the future. To me, the metaverse is a social, immersive, shared world. That's how I see the metaverse growing. I think there's still a lot of unknowns around what the metaverse is, and we're in a period where lots of people within the industry are trying to define it. And actually, therefore, it's a really exciting time, because at the moment, I think there are actually multiple definitions of what the metaverse is and could be. And so the main kind of vibe at the moment is that the metaverse is full of possibilities and opportunities. And that's what I find so exciting about what the metaverse is and could be. And certainly then, within the context of the fitness resort and what we're doing there, we are pioneering a new frontier, not only in VR, but in WebXR. So we're even more niche than VR. And for me, again, exploring that new space, that new frontier of the metaverse and WebXR, that is what has allowed TFR to exist. And that's very exciting. So VR is developing at a very fast pace, as is quite normal with an emerging sector, an emerging industry, and especially with technology. I also think that with developers in the mix who are used to quick iterations and moving on their technology, that is definitely a hallmark of where VR is at the moment. For us at the fitness resort, what that means is that we are riding this wave along with them. So we are pioneering WebXR in several areas. We are breaking new ground in terms of using WebXR rather than native apps. So that is a big departure from the mainstream VR community. We have chosen on purpose to use WebXR rather than picking a headset and going native. This is great because it allows us to be accessible across all headsets, but it does give us a headache in terms of the code. It does mean that we have other considerations that a native game maker wouldn't have. They have their own challenges, but those are the ones for us. We also are pioneering the idea that within WebXR, that we are going for a subscription where we want our customers to keep coming back day in, day out, month in, month out. This is a pioneering area for WebXR. So for us, we are focused on getting as many people into headsets as possible, which as a whole VR is trying to do because that's in our interest to help grow the sector. But not only that, in order for us to really push this forward, because we chose WebXR, we couldn't use Unity. Now Unity is obviously a huge engine that people know very well. You have Unity developers who are really skilled using that engine, but it couldn't meet our needs for the WebXR sort of path that we took, which meant we had to reach out and use an upcoming engine called Wonderland engine. But this then further narrows our pool of developers because they need to be familiar with both the Wonderland engine and WebXR. So for us, we're really pioneering in those sectors. So just as VR is moving quickly, so are we. And because we're having to innovate on such a level, we are actually also ourselves pushing VR as a sector forward and WebXR as a sector forward. So for us, our vision is that WebXR will be seen as a legitimate contender against native apps. That's where I'm hoping VR will progress. So far, I would say that my proudest moments working with TFR, working with the fitness resort, has been when we really cracked multiplayer mode. So for us, this was really important. One of our core goals for the game and for the fitness experience was to have a social element so that people could meet up online in VR and exercise together, but be social and build a community. So when I was sent the link to join our development team in the fitness resort space, I put that headset on, I could see everybody's avatar, I could hear everybody talking with spatial audio. That's when it really hit home. This is real. We are really making something special here. From an operational point of view, I need to make sure that everything is working efficiently and effectively. We are a startup, we are bootstrapping, we cannot waste a single penny or pound. So from my point of view, where I tend to start is really understanding what the challenge is, unpicking the current problem or the goal, what are we trying to build? Really unpicking that to understand the component parts. When I have that understood, that's then when I can look at different systems that could meet those needs. I can look at what expertise that I might need to draw upon, and then it is joining all of those dots together. So something that I am finding a lot is that we're having to make it up to meet our exact needs. Just as the developers are having to do that with product, I am doing that with operations. Some of the main challenges that I have found, certainly for my role in operations, is that we don't actually have any direct competitors. So normally something that I would do is I would want to go out and research, I want to see best practice, I want to see what others are doing in the space. I never think that I know everything. In fact, the more I learn, the more I realise I don't know lots of things. And so I always want to go and learn from the best. What's the best practice out there? And I say magpie it, but I think modelling is the right word, and model those best bits. But for me, that's a harder process at the moment because I can't go to some direct competitors and really try and tear apart and examine what they're doing. So instead, I have to isolate certain sections of what we're doing and then go and find near competitors in that space to at least see what they're doing there. On the whole, we are pioneering as a company focused in WebXR. There are no big WebXR companies doing a fitness game. So I have, of course, looked at Supernatural, Beat Saber, and the likes of those companies, but they're native apps for a start. Well, they're not having to contend with what we are in WebXR. But also they don't have the focus on fitness and the social, as well as the accessibility across the web like we do. So that's been a real challenge, to be much more innovative than perhaps normal. There isn't really a cookie cutter process here where I can Google or go on TikTok or use ChatGPT to say, tell me how to run the operations of this business. We really are building this from the ground up in a bespoke way. So lots to learn. I'm sure I have made many mistakes, but it's all about learning from those and then moving forward and just keeping getting better and better. So for the fitness resort, we are a WebXR company, so I need to keep on top of industry trends in VR, but also WebXR, but then also in the gaming industry because we go into that sector too, but also of course the fitness industry. So there's quite a lot of sectors and industries to keep on top of. So the best things I find is reading a lot, LinkedIn, Discord, journalists who I respect in those spaces, but also getting out there and talking to people. So recently, for example, I was at PerformX Live in London, really seeing the lay of the land with future and current fitness trends, and it was fascinating to see how much tech was really coming into that space. So it was quite encouraging that we are definitely developing a product that I know will have a consumer demand for it when we launch. Also in the WebXR and VR space, I have been to AWE EU. I'm also going to be at AWE US, which is really exciting to meet those in the industry. I think also as a woman in tech and as a woman in WebXR, there's not enough of us. I am a non-technical person, I'm not a developer. We definitely need women across all functions and roles within this space. I think it will make us as an industry much richer to have a more diverse number of voices and minds just looking at this problem, looking at the challenges and moving the industry on. And also in terms of trends, we as an industry have to listen to the consumers. So having people within our industry that reflect the diversity in our consumers can only be a good thing. So part of my role as COO is to make sure that the goals and objectives that we have set as a company are followed through and demonstrated through all parts of the business. As a board member, as a co-founder, I of course helped develop those goals and objectives. So it's not too hard in some ways to keep everything aligned to those because I use those as a plumb line every day. For me, it's very much about in my day-to-day when I'm tackling a problem, dealing with somebody or an external person or trying to solve a problem, is asking those questions all the time. How does this link back? How is this pushing us incrementally towards our goal and objective? And if I'm not sure, then that's enough of a red flag for me to stop and just relook at something that's happening to see if I need to change it. But as I say, being a board member, I fully believe in the goals and the objectives, and I think it could be argued that how could the operations sort of show the, perhaps the company values, for example. But actually, it really can, even in the back end of something on the website or something in the customer service system, because the customer is always the focused. We want them to have the best experience possible. And we know that for WebXR or VR, there are some hurdles there. We are a young industry in terms of whether it's smoothing the journey to pay for something, paying for something, typing things, using the keyboard in VR is really difficult. So I always have that in mind when I'm developing something like the payment process, which could sound really dry and boring, but actually that will directly impact our customers' experience of the fitness resort, so I care. So that's how I do it. Fostering an environment of continuous improvement is vital for myself within the role of operations, but I would argue across the fitness resort as a company, but actually even broader than that for any startup. I think innovation, which is the game we are playing, we are innovating in a new technology and in a new sector. Innovation requires you to continuously improve. I think there is a way of seeing that though that feels really positive. So I think we don't want to see it in terms of being perfect. Really, in the industry that we're in and with the development team that we have, for example, with product and in operations, perfect can be the enemy of progress, and we're not really interested in that. If we wait until things are perfect, we'll never launch, we'll never get it out there, we'll never get it off the ground, and all of that time, effort and money will be for nothing. So rather than focusing on that, this idea of continual improvement, incremental improvement, is much more how we operate on a daily basis. Where we tend to work in sprints, which we didn't invent that's quite a normal way of working. But those 2-week increments with set types of meetings that we have in those, where we set out the plan, then we do the doing all together, and then we come and review at the end and see what did we achieve, what didn't we achieve, why, what needs to change, what needs to be focused on in the next sprint. We use that across the board, whether it's the dev team for product or whether it's operations, and that works really well. I do think as well there is an attitude of continual improvement which holds everybody else in the team in high regard, and it assumes that everybody is doing their best. So if something doesn't work out, or a problem just seems insurmountable, or someone makes a mistake, then there isn't this critical attitude of that might belittle people or make them feel despondent. It's tough enough what we're trying to do. We're literally inventing things. So having a really positive, collaborative attitude and environment where there's no such thing as a stupid question, there's no such thing as a silly idea. That way, the best idea wins. And there's always a nugget in something that somebody's saying and you can build on it. So we do hackathons for when we're really trying to innovate and push something forward within the product team, but also within ops as well. We are inventing the back end of these systems and operations. So all of that together really gives us a really collaborative team effort for making sure that we can incrementally progress to our goal. I've known Yinch for a number of years now, and Yinch is the CEO and CTO of the fitness resort. But that's not how I first met him. I met him through his company Playco, and my company Waymaker have been supporting him and Playco for a number of years in terms of business development. And it was through Playco and Yinch's innovation around a VR skiing game, where he collaborated with Tim Duggan, who is a former British skiing Olympian, that I really saw the potential. So through working with Tim and Yinch, we decided that actually the skiing game had a lot of potential and it needed to be its own company. So we formed the fitness resort and we brought on Jack Gower, who is another of our board members, who is also a former Olympic skier. And we brought on Graham Love as well as our CFO. So the kind of Fab Five were formed just over a year ago now. And together we all bring different attributes, different characteristics and skills that are really helping us to push the business forward. For me, in terms of where we're pushing this business, I really want to see the fitness resort viewed by the industry as a leading WebXR fitness game that is respected in both the VR gaming industry but also in the fitness industry. We really want the fitness aspect, the fitness value of the game to be seen as a huge benefit for those that are seeking to improve their well-being, improve their overall health, improve their fitness. We want them to see the fitness resort as a viable way of reaching their fitness and health goals. I also really want to see us as, it sounds perhaps quite grand, but as creating our own genre, as creating a genre of WebXR fitness, which currently it's wide open. There's not really any of us there. So I really want us to be seen as a trailblazer, as a pioneer in that section of the industry. I also want to see in general the everyday consumer becoming much more at ease with VR and with headsets. It's still not seen as mainstream, I would argue, although I know the hardware companies are doing their very best to get those headsets out there to reach as many people as possible. But I would love to see people really becoming used to it so that they can start to explore these new worlds that are created in VR and hopefully explore our world, the fitness resort. I really see VR being able to push the boundaries in terms of fitness. And I see the fitness resort as being really critical to pushing that agenda forward. I think that wearable tech to support people's fitness journeys from home and in the gym is really where the trend is taking us. I also think as part of that trend of wearable tech, obviously I'm referring to headsets, but I know that you could easily include in that watches and rings in that kind of fitness space, where whilst you are working out, whilst you are exercising, that the tech is gathering bespoke data individual to you that then gives you a dashboard of sorts that shows you a kind of gauge of how you're getting on, which is a great way to track progress, which we all need in order to help keep motivated. But also that step further on from that it not only explains to you your data, but it then, as a result of your data, gives you extra hints and tips and suggestions of how to then improve. And then you can see the impact of that on your data. That is something that the fitness resort is really passionate about, is helping people to make sustained changes to their health. And we are not a company that is focused on how you look as indicative of how healthy you are. We are really focused on the social aspect of it as being good for your overall health, physical and mental. The sport aspect of how we have designed the activities to really tap into people's competitive nature, the tactical side of sport, which allows you to enjoy physical movement, enjoy moving around, so that you're not just focused on a repetitive move for its own sake, and therefore its impact on your physicality, how you look. We know that making changes to your physical shape is good for your overall health, but we're not just about the aesthetic. We want to change your overall health, and by gathering data, I think that is a way to do it, and I think that is something that the fitness industry are becoming more and more interested in. We no longer want blanket techniques and tips or workouts. We like things to be bespoke now. We have a very, very discerning consumer who knows what they want but needs help to know how to get there, or needs some guidance on knowing what they want, but once they've got that guidance can really take it and run. So for me, I think that's where being able to have tech that allows you to access workouts and access fitness at home is also really important. Women, we've heard so much in the media of how unsafe women feel. Being able to work out in the comfort of their own home, away from an unwanted gaze, away from having to travel to and from that space, perhaps in the evening, at night, being able to access it 24 hours a day, we know people want that. I do think as well, for us at the fitness resort, we have an added edge. We have 2 former Olympians on our board. So in terms of our fitness credentials, we've got them. So I think that's where I'm really excited to see how the fitness resort can really impact the VR and the fitness industry and lead it into this new era of combining tech with fitness.